Hello, everyone. It's now 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and you've joined the 2022 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program and Connect and Protect New Grantee General Orientation, Part 2. To allow for a few additional sign-ins past the hour, please just stay in the room, and we'll be starting the webinar very shortly. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for joining today's 2022 Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program and Connect and Protect New Grantee Orientation Webinar Part 2. Today's Part 2 orientation webinar is focused on an overview of the JMHCP and Connect and Protect budget, grants management, and performance measurement requirements. My name is Allison Upton, and I'm a Deputy Program Director at the Council of State Government's Justice Center. I'll be moderating today's webinar, which is hosted by the U.S. Department of Justice, Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA. To give you an overview of today's webinar, first we'll do introductions of our panelists and provide brief overviews of the Bureau of Justice Assistance, or BJA, the JMHCP and Connect and Protect programs, and the Council of State Government's Justice Center, or CSG Justice Center for short. Then the BJA's program office will discuss budget and grants management, followed by an overview of the performance measurement tool and processes. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have time for questions and answers. And just a quick bit of housekeeping information. Anytime during the webinar, you can ask a question by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and entering your question. This includes both technical and content-related questions. We'll try to reply to technical questions in the chat window as we go. For the content-related questions, we will keep a running list and address them at the end of the webinar. We'll do our best to get through as many questions as we can. If you encounter any kind of technical or audio problems during this webinar, please click on the links that have been dropped into the chat box. Please understand that there are some technical issues that we may not be able to resolve, but we'll try our best to assist you. We are recording this webinar, and we will post it along with the slide deck onto the CSG Justice Center website in about a week or so. For introductions, our first participant, our panelist, is Nikisha Love, who is a State Policy Advisor, or SPA for short, at the Bureau of Justice Assistance in the Office of Justice Programs. And Ms. Love has been with the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs since 2008. She is a grants management specialist for BJA, and in this role, she manages and provides guidance in the administration of the Justice and Mental Health Collaboration Program, JMHCP, grant funding, also the Adult Drug Court grant funding, and the Justice Assistance Grant, or JAG, grant funding. Ms. Love has a very strong financial background and has been managing formula and discretionary grant programs for over 20 years. She first started administering grants with the Department of Health and Human Services in the Office of Grants Management as a grants management specialist, where she managed over 300 grants for the Office of Community Services and served as a lead specialist for the Assets for Individual Development Accounts, or AIDA, grant-funded program, and for the Compassion Capital Fund grants. Our next presenter is Tammy Lovell, who is also a state policy advisor, SPA, at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. She has been with the Department of Justice Office of Justice Programs since 2020. Ms. Lovell is a grants management specialist for BJA, and in this role, she also manages and provides guidance in the administration of the JMHCP grant funding, the Adult Drug Court grant funding, JAG grant funding, Justice for All Effective Administration of Criminal Justice Training and Technical Assistance grant funding, and Coronavirus Emergency Supplemental funding. Ms. Lovell has been managing formula and discretionary grant programs for over 14 years. She first started administering grants for Maryland's State Administrative Agency with the Governor's Office of Crime Prevention, Youth, and Victim Services as a grant specialist, where she managed over 150 grants for the state of Maryland and served as the Senior Law Enforcement Program Manager. And last but not least, another presenter is Sam Wilcox, who is a Senior Research Associate at Carnival Associates, which is a contractor for the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice. Ms. Wilcox brings 6 years of experience in the criminal justice field, conducting criminal justice research and data collection, specializing in performance measurement and management, program evaluation, and data analysis. Ms. Wilcox has been a member of the Planning, Performance, and Impact Team for the Office of Justice Programs Performance Measurement Project contract for 3 years. She currently supports multiple programs across the substance use in prosecution and public defense portfolios. So I want to say a big thanks to all of our presenters today for joining into this webinar. So next, we'd really like to hear from you all, the fiscal year 22 JMHCP and Connect and Protect grantee team members that are here today. Can you please, we're sort of a large group, so we're not going to do personal introductions, but if you could please take a moment just to introduce yourself in the chat. Please just include your name, title, organization, your jurisdiction, role on the grant project, and anything else you'd like to briefly share today. So we'll give a minute for that. If folks can just share that in the chat box, that would be great for introductions. Thank you so much. It's going to be a long list, so we look forward to seeing everyone. It'll let us know who's here today from the cohort. Thank you. Okay, and while everyone's introducing themselves, we can go to the next slide, I think. And next, I want to tell you a bit about the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the Office of Justice Programs. So BJA's mission is to provide leadership and services in grant administration and criminal justice policy development to support local, state, and tribal justice strategies to achieve safer communities. Specifically, BJA provides funding to support law enforcement, combat violent and drug-related crime, and combat victimization. Through the development and implementation of policy, services, and sound grants management, BJA strengthens the nation's criminal justice system and restores security in communities. Now, last week, we had part 1 of our orientation webinar. So for those of you who attended there, you met Maria Fryer, who is the Justice System and Mental Health Policy Advisor for JMHCP. And she spoke a bit about the role of the policy office in your grant work. Also within BJA is the programs office, and together policy and programs offices work hand in hand to assist you in the planning and implementation of your grant program. Today, you'll be hearing a lot more from the programs office. The programs office manages the individual awards that each of you have received, and as such, you have been assigned a grant manager, either Nikisha Love or Tammy Lovell, who I just did introductions for. Nikisha or Tammy will be your main point of contact within BJA with support from their division chief, Eric Dietrich. They will be able to answer all of your questions pertaining to allowable costs, management of the award, and reporting, and you're going to learn much more about their work very soon in this webinar. The goal of the JMHCP grant program is to develop collaboration across the criminal justice and behavioral health systems, from law enforcement, pretrial courts, jails, and community supervision, to learn how to have successful partnerships that increase efficiencies and improve public safety and outcomes for people with mental health conditions and co-occurring mental health conditions and substance use disorders in the justice system. The Connect and Protect program supports law enforcement and behavioral health cross-system collaboration to design and implement best practice programs in crisis response to assist law enforcement during their encounters with people who have mental health disorders or co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders in the justice system. These programs, Connect and Protect programs, could include crisis intervention teams, co-responder teams, law enforcement-based case management services, law enforcement assisted diversion or lead programs, mobile crisis teams, or emergency medical services based responses. Connect and Protect objectives may include a variety of different topics, including engaging citizens through officer outreach and education to improve public safety, building positive community relations and trust through public communication strategies, or enhancing officer knowledge and skills in responding to community members with mental health disorders or co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders. Next slide. Next, I'll just give you some brief background on the Council of State Governments Justice Center, or CSG Justice Center for short. So the CSG Justice Center is a national, nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that combines the power of a membership association representing state officials in all three branches of government with the expertise of a policy and research team focused on assisting others to attain measurable results. Our staff develops research-driven strategies to increase public safety and strengthen communities. So this next slide describes a bit more about our work style and how we strive to reflect CSG Justice Center core values, which include a commitment to being independent and nonpartisan in every aspect of our work, providing rigorous, trusted, high-quality analysis, developing practical and innovative solutions informed by data and research, promoting collaboration and building consensus, and being inclusive and respectful of diverse views and experiences. As the training and technical assistance provider, or TA provider for short, for the JMHCP and Connect and Protect projects, the CSG Justice Center is here to help support your grant to be a success. You'll be connected to a TA coach who will help support you in reaching your grant goals. If there are changes to your grant programmatic design or budget challenges, we will discuss it with you and refer you to BJA as needed. We help provide BJA with information on all the grantees' progress and really update them on the great work that's happening throughout the country. We hold monthly calls with BJA programs and policy offices to make sure that we're all on the same page as far as the grantee work. Your TA coach will be reaching out to you soon, but if you have any questions about your grant project before then, please feel free to contact me and I will do my best to answer your questions. You'll find my contact information along with all of our presenters on a slide at the end of this webinar, so all of our contact information will be available to you. So a bit about some expectations that we have. In part one of this orientation webinar series, again, that was last week, and we also recorded that for those of you who are interested in watching it if you were not able to attend at the time. In part one, we spoke in more detail, like in some of the breakout sessions, about the technical assistance process, TA process, that will be available to support all of you, the JMHCP and Connect and Protect grantees. But as a refresher, on this side, we just listed some of the key strategies and requirements that'll help you to get the most out of the technical assistance process. So we expect that the grant teams, that you all will engage actively and consistently in the TA process with us. This will include monthly technical assistance calls, TA calls, throughout the life of the grant. All the teams will work with their TA coach to complete the planning and implementation guide. This is one of the main activities that happens during the planning phase of your grant. And even after that, grantees and your TA coaches will collaborate during the implementation phase to think through ongoing goals, areas of focuses, areas of focus. And so all this collaboration will lead to the development of a TA plan, technical assistance plan, and other activities that you're going to find to be helpful throughout your grant process, resources. You'll be informed about various trainings and activities, communities of practice, et cetera. And your TA coach will really always work to individualize the TA process as much as possible so that we can best meet each team's needs and objectives. We also expect that grantees will be in regular contact with and will reach out to their primary point of contact at BJA, which I mentioned is your assigned state policy advisor. We expect that you will reach out to your SPA when you have questions or experience challenges. We particularly encourage you to seek guidance from your state policy advisor on the topics of budgeting, grant management, reporting, other administrative and financial processes for your grant award. These are their particular areas of expertise and oversight, and you will hear much more on these topics during the webinar today, and have the chance to ask questions about them. Okay, so next we'd like to just ask you to respond to a couple of quick polling questions just to learn a little bit more about your group. So, my colleague Andrea has sent the poll out, so just give everyone a little time to respond to it. Okay, we're getting a lot of results in. Give it a little more time. Still getting some results in, so that's great. Thank you. Keep them coming. Okay, Andrea, does it look? We're getting a few more answers. Okay, I think we've leveled out here. Andrea, would you say so? Yes. Yes. Okay. So, okay, great. So you're sharing the results now? Excellent. So it looks very interesting. Wow. So the first question is, have you previously received a BJA award? And it looks like 60% of the group here today has previously received a BJA award. So that's fascinating. So lots of repeat awardees. That's great to see. And then the second question, if you have previously received a BJA award, was it a JMHCP or Connect and Protect award? And very high numbers here. So about 84% of the people who have received, of the groups that have received a prior BJA award, it was a prior JMHCP or Connect and Protect award. So that I think says a lot about interest in the JMHCP and Connect and Protect awards, that jurisdictions are continuing to apply for them. So that's great to see. Thank you very much. Very interesting results, and thanks for your responses on the poll. Okay, so next we are going to really get into the meat of our presentation today. So I am going to pass it over to Tammy Lovell now to discuss budget and grant management with you. Tammy?
Thank you, Allison. Hello and welcome. I am Tammy Lovell, State Policy Advisor with BJA. I manage the JMHCP and Connect and Protect grants along with my colleague, Nikisha Love. Your assigned grant manager works with you to ensure grant-funded projects are implemented successfully and in compliance with all relative, program-specific, and federal requirements. Your grant manager is your primary point of contact for any grant administrative questions or actions you may have. This slide shows the grant management life cycle and the topics that will be covered. We will begin with the award acceptance and award conditions. Then I will address the budget clearance process and access to funds. I will then cover the reporting requirements, administrative requirements, award modifications, monitoring, and finally the closeout process. Next slide. Every grant award is entered into the form of a legal agreement between your agency and the federal government. Before the award is accepted, it is important that you review and understand the terms of the agreement, which will include conditions you are responsible for adhering to in management and implementation of the award. The individual in your agency with the authorized representative role that you assigned to the application will be responsible for accepting the award electronically via Just Grants. Before doing so, your agency's entity administrator must assign the role of grant award administrator and financial manager to the award, and also confirm that the authorized representative Additionally, the authorized representative can be changed if that person is no longer in that position for the organization. Next slide. OJP includes standard award conditions which are applied to all awards. A few examples include the requirement to adhere to the DOJ financial guide and the uniform requirements, which are the federal-wide grant regulations in 2 CFR Part 200. The OJP standard conditions are numbered 1 through 29 in your award agreement. The link on this slide has details on the legal requirements for fiscal year 22 awards related to these conditions. Your awards also have BJA specific award conditions, which begin with number 30 in the award agreement. There are 3 award conditions specific to JMHCP and Connect and Protect programs. Condition number 46 details eligibility requirements for participants receiving direct services funded by the program. Condition number 47 is related to the unique match requirement that is in the authorizing legislation. We will discuss this in more detail on later slides. Condition number 48 is regarding the required planning phase, which must be completed before implementation activities can begin, which is also a requirement due to language in the Justice Mental Health Collaboration Statute. This condition is a partial withholding condition, meaning you would only allow you access up to $100,000 in grant funds until the planning phase is completed and approved by BJA. Your award will also have 1 or more withholding conditions that prevent obligation, expenditure, or drawdown of all of your award funds until certain actions are completed. For example, OJP was unable to give final approval or clearance to the application budget, and therefore award condition number 49 was applied until OCFO approves or clears the budget. I'll explain this in more detail in a minute. Other withholding conditions may have been applied before due to missing or insufficient information from your application that must be addressed. Given that these conditions withhold all of your grant funds, you will not have access to the $100,000 for planning activities until all have been resolved and ACMs have been processed. You should work with your grant manager to provide the missing information needed to remove the holds associated with award conditions. As I mentioned, due to the award processing timeframes, OJP did not clear your application before the award was issued. OCFO will be reviewing application budgets in turn post-award. Upon review, the OCFO analyst will initiate a budget clearance scan, which will be approved if no issues with the budget were identified, or change requested back to you if changes are needed. It is important to note that even if OCO does not identify issues, BJA may have identified programmatic issues that will need to be addressed. The grant award administrator for the award will be assigned the budget clearance grant award modification, or GAM, if changes are needed. And The review comments will be within the GAM itself. The grant award administrator should make the necessary changes and resubmit the GAM so the budget can be cleared. The grant award administrator will receive notification from Just Grants when the budget clearance receives final approval. One of the unique requirements of the Justice Mental Health Collaboration Program and Connect and Protect programs is that the statute has an escalating match requirement. That is, the required non-federal share increases in subsequent years. The match requirement in years 1 and 2 of the project is 20% of the total project cost. Note that this means the total of both years, so the match in the individual years can differ as long as it totals 20% for both years. The match requirement in project year 3 is 40% of the total project cost for that year. This means that the federal expenditures in years 1 and 2 cannot exceed 80% of the total project cost, and in year 3, federal expenditures cannot exceed 60% of the total project cost. The total project cost is the federal and the non-federal costs combined. You do not calculate match by applying the non-federal percentage to the federal award amount. On the next slide, I'll go step by step how to calculate the required minimum match amount. This slide shows how to calculate the minimum required non-federal match for a JMHCP or a Connect and Protect award in the amount of $550,000 of federal funds, and assuming that the total federal expenditure amount in years 1 and 2 is a combined $200,000, and in year 3 is $350,000. You would use the same method for your grant using the federal award amount issued and estimated federal expenditures by year. First, you divide the total federal expenditures in years 1 and 2, in this case $200,000, by the required federal share, which is 80%. This results in the total project cost of $250,000 for years 1 and 2. For year 3, you divide the federal expenditure of $350,000 by 60%, which is the required federal share. Here you need to round up and you get a total project cost of $583,334. In the next step, you subtract the federal expenditure from the total project cost, which gives you the minimum non-federal match amount required. So $50,000 of the total match is required in years 1 and 2, and $233,334 in year 3. So for this example, the total federal match amount for the entire 3-year grant is $283,334 for a total project cost of all 3 years of $833,334, which includes the award amount of $550,000 and the total match. I should also point out that either cash or in-kind sources of match are acceptable, and that in your budget in Just Grants, you should identify each cost as federal or non-federal, either in the description or the narrative. When reviewing the budget, OCFO will check the federal and non-federal totals to make sure that the match is met. An award condition requires that the grant award administrator and financial manager assigned to your award must complete training within 120 days of grant acceptance. This requirement applies to any individuals who take on these roles during the life of the grant. Successful completion on or after January 1st, 2020 fulfills this requirement. Some grants may have a withholding version of this award condition if the recipient has never had an OJP award or was rated at a higher risk. There's a link to the online training on this slide. You will need your UEI number and award number to register. Send your certificate of completion to your BJA grant manager when you have finalized the training. This slide details the steps you will need to take in order to access award funds. You must accept the award and resolve any withholding conditions, such as the conditional clearance for budget approval. You must be registered in the U.S. Treasury's ASAP system, which is the system you will use to make drawdown requests. Your ASAP account will be suspended if there are any delinquent reports, so that is also a condition for access fundings. The standard rules for payments as detailed in the DOJ Financial Guide apply to your award. If you draw down in advance, you can only draw down enough for 10 days of future cash needs, and any excess not spent in 10 days must be returned to OJP. There are no limitations on making reimbursement drawdowns. You can process reimbursements on the frequency that works for your specific agency. This slide includes more details on the ASAP system. If you are a current OJP grantee with an active ASAP registration, you don't need to take any further actions in ASAP for this award, unless another user needs to be added to your ASAP account to make drawdowns on this award. However, if you are a new OJP recipient, you will need to first be fully registered in ASAP. After your authorized representative accepts the award, the entity administrator for your agency will receive 2 emails from ASAP with the instructions for registering. On this slide, we have the contact information for OCFO, customer service, who is the contact you will need to request that the ASAP emails be resent to you, or if you need other assistance registering. At this point, I will disregard that. Next slide. Thank you. I apologize, give me 1 second. This slide is an overview of the performance and financial reporting requirements for your award. Performance reports are submitted semi-annually and cover the January to June and July to December reporting periods. They are due in Just Grants 30 days after the reporting period ends, but with a 14-day grace period. Financial reports are submitted quarterly and are due within 30 days and have no grace period. The exception is for final reports, which are due within 120 days after the end date of the project period. The assigned grant award administrator is responsible for submitting the performance reports in Just Grants. Alternate grant award administrators can edit the reports, they just cannot submit them. The assigned financial manager is responsible for submitting the quarterly FFRs in Just Grants. Your BJA grant manager will review your performance reports and either approve them or change request them if additional information is needed. FFRs do not receive internal review or approval, but financial managers can edit submitted FFRs if it is less than 90 days after the quarter has ended. JMHCP and Connect and Protect grantees must submit performance measures directly in Just Grants by completing the question sets within the semi-annual performance reports. Recipients are encouraged to attach any supporting documentation to the report as well, especially the final performance report, which must have the narrative about the full accomplishments and the goals and objectives of the project. Keep in mind that Just Grants will automatically suspend the ASAP account if a report is delinquent, and access to funds will be interrupted until the reporting is submitted. A pattern of delinquent reports will increase the chances your award will be selected for in-depth monitoring. So it is important to submit the reports on time. Next slide. On this slide, I will cover an important administrative distinction between subawards and procurement contracts made under grants. The requirement for each differs significantly, so it is important that you understand how to properly classify any third parties you will pay with grant funds. It is the nature of the relationship that determines whether it is a subaward or a contract for grant administrative purposes. For example, a nonprofit partner agency who will be responsible for completing a portion of the project to meet the goals and objectives will likely be a subrecipient. Whereas a for-profit vendor that is providing goods and services to an agency is likely a procurement contractor. This slide includes a link to OJP's website with resources you can use, including a checklist to make further determination. This slide highlights a few of the procurement contract requirements related to grants to include requirement for full and open competition, but you should review and be familiar with the full requirements before entering into any contracts. Two things to highlight include the requirement to seek prior written approval from OJP for a sole source contract over $250,000. The DOJ financial guide and the sole source checklist linked on the previous slide include the criteria for when this may be appropriate and a template for submitting your request to OJP. The other point is that any contract must include the provisions required by 2 CFR 200 Appendix 2. This slide lists some, but not all of the requirements related to subawards. This includes accessing the risk of all potential subrecipients before issuing subawards, including all required information in the subaward agreement, and passing on award conditions to them, and monitoring all subrecipients throughout the subaward period. As the pass-through entity, you must have policies and procedures in place for making and monitoring subaward agreements consistent with the federal requirements, which are linked on this slide. Pass-through entities are required to report any subaward in the amount of $30,000 or more into the FATA reporting portal. You must submit the FATA report regarding a subaward the month after entering into that agreement. This slide has the links to the site and additional useful information. On this slide, I highlight a few other administrative requirements that may apply to your award. The first one applies to all awards, and that is your responsibility to report any waste, fraud, abuse, or other misconduct related to the grant. The second bullet is important for projects that are serving minors. There are other requirements related to accessing suitability of project staff who will work with participants who are under 18. This link has the full requirements. And the last bullet relates to the BJA requirements for posting disclaimers if your award is funding a website or a publication. There are 2 different award conditions for these requirements. Again, please refer to your award agreement and the conditions. I understand that the grant administrative requirements can be very overwhelming, especially to a new grantee. So at this point, I want to reassure you that your grant manager is here to help you navigate through them. Please reach out to us with any questions you have. You can also request changes to the grant award if needed. In Just Grants, they are called Grant Award Modifications, or GAMs for short. As I mentioned earlier, the Budget Clearance GAM, which is a GAM that must be initiated by OCFO. The types of GAMs that you can initiate are listed here. Only the grant award administrator on your award can initiate a GAM. It is a good idea to run any proposed changes by your grant manager before submitting the GAM. Many changes require prior written approval by the federal agency listed in the DOJ Grants Financial Guide and 2 CFR Part 200. The situations are too numerous to go into detail here, so please refer to the financial guide for more information on GAMs. On the next slide, however, I will go into more detail on project period extensions. The uniform requirements in OJP policy generally limit grants to a 1 project period extension that is not to exceed 12 months in duration. It must be requested at least 30 days in advance, cannot be requested only to expend the remaining funds, and the recipient must not have any serious performance or compliance issues. OJP will make exceptions to this policy on a case-by-case basis if there are extraordinary circumstances that cause additional delays. BJA conducts monitoring activities on all of its grant awards. We do this in our day-to-day review of reports and GAMs, talking to recipients, and in completing desk reviews. The purpose is to help you achieve the goals and objectives of your project and to ensure compliance with all the relevant administrative, financial, and programmatic requirements. BJA and OCFO select a certain number of awards each fiscal year to conduct in-depth monitoring, which can be completed on-site or remotely. The purpose of the in-depth monitoring is not to be punitive. It is to assist our grantees in properly administrating the award and being successful in meeting their project goals. It helps maintain the integrity of our programs to ensure the public is receiving the benefits intended. If your award is selected for in-depth monitoring, you must work with OJP to provide the necessary documentation and communicate with us throughout the review. After the review, you will receive a post-monitoring letter that details the results, including any issues that need to be resolved. We will work with you to resolve these issues and provide training and technical assistance if needed. Once the grant period is completed, it is time for the final stage in the grant life cycle, which is closeout. This consists of completing all obligations for project costs within the project period. After the project period, you have up to 120 days to liquidate remaining funds for costs that were properly incurred before the end date. You will need to submit the final performance report and the final FFR in Just Grants and complete the final drawdown of funds in ASAP. After that is done, the grant award administrator submits the closeout in Just Grants. Note that as soon as the closeout is submitted, the ASAP account will be automatically suspended, which is why you should do this as the last step. The ASAP account will also be suspended if a closeout is not submitted within the 120-day time frame of the project end date, at which point OJP will complete the closeout. If additional funds are owed to OJP or to you, OCFO will reach out for financial reconciliation. On this slide, we include some helpful links, many which were provided in other slides. You will receive copies of these slides and all active links. Here are some additional links with a special note to Just Grants training resources that are available. Next slide. Here's the contact information and assignments for Nikisha and myself. Thank you again for your participation in the webinar, and please reach out to us with any questions. I'm going to now turn it over to Sam.
Thank you, Tammy. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Sam Wolcott. I'm a research analyst with the Planning, Performance, and Impact team, and part of my job includes managing the performance data that you will be submitting as part of your grant program. Next slide. This portion of the orientation will cover several topics related to performance management at the Bureau of Justice Assistance. We will discuss requirements for data reporting, including what you need to report, where reporting happens, when reporting is due throughout the year, and how to report data. Specifics around your program and your respective reporting questionnaire, including recent revisions to measures, will also be discussed. I'll then share some data reporting and goal-setting best practices to set you up for success. Finally, I will share contact information and resources for you to get in touch with us if you need assistance with your performance measures or reporting at any time. Performance management is the process by which grantees regularly collect data on their grant activities to determine whether they are implementing activities as intended and achieving their desired goals and objectives. Using performance measures that capture inputs, outputs, and outcomes over time enables pre- and post-comparisons that can be used to assess change. BJA has established performance measures for each grant program. These measures were included in the original solicitation that you responded to. I will review the specifics of your program's unique questionnaire during this orientation. You can find additional information and several resources at the Grant Performance Measurement and Progress Reporting Information portal at the BJA Performance Measurement website listed here. Performance measures have many purposes and benefits to your program and for BJA. They allow BJA to look at your program holistically, as well as at the local level to identify areas of success and potential opportunities for improvement. This allows BJA to target training and technical assistance resources to subjects or localities that need them the most. Furthermore, BJA routinely receives data calls and requests, sometimes from Congress or the White House, and relies primarily on the data provided by grantees to respond to these inquiries. BJA regularly tracks progress towards goals and reports annual key performance indicators to leadership during budget formulation. Lastly, DOJ is required to comply with the reporting requirements of federal laws, including the Government Performance and Results Modernization Act of 2010, the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2014, and the Grant Reporting Efficiency and Agreements Transparency Act of 2019. Next slide, thank you. There are 3 required sources of data that you will use to report: performance measures, narrative questions, and closeout questions. The performance measure questions for your program are a series of questions that measure outcomes of grant activities and demonstrate the accomplishment of goals and objectives of BJA programs. A series of narrative questions related to your grant program's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and successes are also part of the questionnaire. Finally, closeout questions are a series of questions you will need to respond to only when activities have been completed and the grant is ending. Currently, there are 2 systems in place that both facilitate performance reporting for BJA. Which system you report in is determined by when you received your award. Grantees who received their award prior to the fiscal year 2021 will continue to report quarterly in the performance measurement tool until further notice. Grantees who received their award after fiscal year 2021 will report semi-annually in Just Grants. If you have more than one award from different years, you may be reporting in both systems. However, as this is a new grantee orientation, we will focus on the Just Grants requirements. You will report data semi-annually using revised measures in the new Just Grants reporting system, which replaced the grants management system as of October 2020. You can access Just Grants using the link on this page. This table outlines the reporting schedule for Just Grants, which we also already covered a little bit earlier on in this presentation. And as you can see, Just Grants reporting will be required semi-annually in January and July. Just Grants is accessible for data entry after a data selection period has closed. So you'll be able to fill out your questionnaire on a semi-annual basis directly in Just Grants. You can upload data throughout the month of July for the January through June submission period, and throughout the month of January for the July through December reporting period. Please note, if the performance report is not submitted by the due date, its status will immediately transition to delinquent, and your grant manager or state policy advisor will likely contact you for your site data submission. There is a 15-day grace period after the due date before funds are frozen for delinquent performance reports. I'm now going to go over both the JMHCP and the Connect and Protect questionnaire, starting with the JMHCP questionnaire, which is linked on this slide. However, if you are a Connect and Protect award recipient, there are some overlapping sections, so please follow along now, and we won't have to go over certain things twice once we get to your questionnaire. So here are the categories that are in the JMHCP questionnaire. Next slide. Connect and Protect grantees. This slide also pertains to you, and you will also start your questionnaire off with both general award and partnership activity sections. After answering questions about general award administration, such as if you have activity to report on in a given reporting period, you will be directed to answer questions on partnership activities. Essentially, this just means you'll be asked if your program has established an advisory group, and if so, what kinds of activities that group has engaged in during the reporting period. In the program overview section, you will report any obstacles encountered during the reporting period. You can also indicate whether your program is in the planning phase or the implementation phase. In the program description and target population section, you'll respond to questions regarding program activities that are taking place using grant funds. These questions help gather information about where in the criminal justice continuum your program operates. This set of questions aims to evaluate the recidivism-related outcomes, such as recidivism reduction of your program. Please note that non-governmental agencies, such as community treatment organizations or private nonprofits, are not expected to track recidivism data using administrative records. Okay, so the remaining slides do pertain to both JMHCP and Connect and Protect grantees. In the training section, you will be asked to report on up to 5 trainings that took place during a reporting period. For each training, you will be asked who provided the training, who the target audience was, the number of people trained, and what funds were used to provide the training. You will also be asked to describe the impact, if any, that that training will have on specific outcomes related to the goals of your program. Next, you will be asked to report about any technical assistance received during the reporting period. Again, you will be able to report up to 5 TA interactions per reporting period, in which you will report the name of the TA reporter, the TA topic, the number of engagements, the level of satisfaction, any feedback you have on the TA provider, and what funds were used to provide the TA. You will also be asked to describe the impact that the TA will have on specific outcomes related to goals of your program. Finally, when you have completed your grant program, spent down your funds, and are ready to close out, we have some specific closeout questions related to important outcomes for the JMHCP program. Please make sure to review these questions at the beginning of your grant program so that you can collect data throughout the life of your program. Okay, so this slide provides the link to the Connect and Protect questionnaire, which I will now go over again a little bit more briefly because there was some overlap with JMHCP. Here are the categories that are in the Connect and Protect questionnaire. Okay, so like JMHCP, the questionnaire starts with questions related to general award administration and partnership activities before moving into a section titled Planning and Understanding the Problem. In this section, you will be asked if your program is in the planning phase or the implementation phase, and you will also provide the status of your program planning activities. In the Policies and Procedures section, you will answer questions related to your agency's policies for responding to calls for individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. The following section covers specialized training. and includes a place to input the number of calls for service, field assessments, and screenings for mental illness given during a given reporting period. In the analysis and research section, you will indicate whether data analysis was conducted during the reporting period, and if so, how that analysis will be used to inform your program's goals. In the participants and services section, you'll be prompted to answer questions related to substance use, mental health, and co-occurring treatment if those are offered by your program. The following sections are the same as the JMHCP questionnaire. So once again, you'll be able to report on up to 5 trainings per reporting period. Same goes for TTA. You can report on up to 5 TTA providers given during a reporting period. And finally, again, same as JMHCP, you'll answer some closeout questions at the end of your grant program. Once again, it's recommended that you track those questions throughout the life of your grant rather than just looking at them at the end. When responding to the narrative questions, you will need to define the goals that you have for your program. Keep in mind, goals should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. It is good practice to review your goals on a regular basis to reassess how you're doing. Make sure to use data to describe how you're doing, as well as anecdotes that show some of the good work you're doing. Here are a few examples of well-defined SMART goals that will set a program up for success. While the goals on the left are great goals, they're difficult to measure and not specific enough to measure success. I'm also going to share some tips to improve data quality that your program can do from the very beginning. It is recommended that a designated staff person coordinates all performance measure data collection and entry to ensure consistency. If this is the first time you will report data, make sure you are familiar with the data you will need to collect and report. You can do this by reviewing the PDF version of the questionnaire. Ensure a backup person is aware of the data collection and reporting process so that they can fill in if the designated staff person is unavailable or leaves the role. Consider available data collection methods, including case management systems or other databases, spreadsheets, tracking intake forms, or other methods. If partner organizations are included in your program design, be sure to engage with them from the start in the planning process. Determine if formalized agreements are needed to ensure that necessary data is collected and that the program meets its goals and objectives. Here is the BJA Help Desk contact information and a list of available resources that will provide you with additional information as needed. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with the exception of federal holidays. We strive to return every email within 24 hours, so please do not hesitate to reach out, send us an email, even after business hours. On behalf of the Planning, Performance, and Impact team, thank you for your time, dedication, and hard work. I'll now pass things back over to Allison.
Thank you, Sam. And thank you, Tammy. We appreciate both of your presentations. Very important information. So I think we can advance maybe 1 or 2 more slides. So now we're going to begin the Q&A, the question and answer portion of the webinar. And we're going to respond to as many questions as possible in the time remaining. And just as a reminder, please, if you have any questions, you can put them into the Q&A button, which should be, just click on the Q&A button, which should be, I think, at the bottom of your screen, and enter your question. And we will get to as many as we can during this time. And just as a reminder, because I know we've covered a lot of ground today, this webinar is being recorded. We'll be posting the recording link along with all the slides, which include our contact information as well. We'll be posting those onto the CSG Justice Center.org website within about a week or so. So please, take a minute and enter any questions that you have. And I will get us started. So I think this question can be directed to probably Tammy and Nikisha, or one of the two of you. So one question is, when can I expect my budget to be cleared?
Thank you, Allison. So that question varies. OCFO is in the process of reviewing all budgets. I know that they have issued a great number of clearances as well as change requests. So the best thing to do is just to keep an eye on your award and your work list, and it should hopefully be within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And I think, sorry, go ahead, Nikisha, were you going to say something?
I wanted to chime in.
Yes, please.
In regards to receiving information as it relates to the budget information, please make sure that you all have assigned roles in Just Grants, because the grant award admin needs to be added in order for you all to be able to have access to view the budget once OCFO reviews it for any changes that need to be done. If you do not assign a grant award admin, you will not be able to access the that grant budget to get approval. So please make sure you all do that.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, anything more to add on that topic, or?
No, that's
we
it.
covered it. Okay. So somewhat of a related question. If people are asking if we have budget questions, who do we contact?
You should reach out. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Nikisha.
You can contact either myself or Tammy, your assigned grant manager, as it relates. That way we can go into even look to see if OCFO has even begun the review process or came back with any recommendations or findings for your budget. And we can also let you know if, they're still in the review process and we have not seen any recommendations as of yet. So again, that's why I said it's very important that you all do assign that grant award admin. That way you will be able to, that grant award admin will be able to get notifications from Just Grants once OCFO has completed the review of the budget.
Great, thank you so much. And maybe we do have also some questions for Sam, but before that, maybe I'll ask something of a related question, because Nikisha, this is about, similar to some of the points of contact that you're describing. So there's a question about whether the grant administrator and the financial point of contact, can they be the same person?
Yes, they can.
Okay. And similarly, if someone leaves the team, if there's some turnover or change in roles, how do they change the financial point of contact? How do they go about changing the financial point of contact? And what if they can't log in because, that person has left?
The entity administrator is responsible for assigning all roles and changing all roles. And I would refer people to the Just Grants training slides that are linked in this presentation on how to correctly do that and to assign a new role.
I wanted to chime in real quick, Allison.
Yes.
Just to state, when you asked the question that was asked about, can the award admin and the financial point of contact be the same person? They can, but we would prefer that they not, or if you do, that you do have alternates in the event that that person is out. Someone would need to fill in that role. So, if that's how your organization is structured, that's fine, but you do need to have alternates so that when we want to reach out or we need additional information, it just won't go to that one person. There's someone else that can also assist.
Be a backup.
Yes.
If possible. That could be very helpful. So yeah, I think that answers. We had a question from Shalia. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, Meisner. Can we have more than one grant administrator? So I think that answers that question then. Great. Okay, I have a question that's in the chat. When can we expect our first TA from BJA? I think probably what the question is when do you find out who your TA provider is, your TA coach, which is through our organization, CSG Justice Center. So you should be finding out that who that person is. You'll hear from that person in the next couple of weeks. If you don't, you can always contact, if for some reason you don't hear, you can contact me, Allison Upton. My contact is information is at the end of this webinar deck. I think that's the question you're asking. If it's something different, please chat that in. And that question was from Debbie DeMarcus. Okay. Let's look at some other questions. Okay, so we have one question about how can we receive the peer review. Oh, I think Eric might be in the middle of typing this question. This is an interesting question. How can we obtain the peer review comments for an application that did not receive funding? So Eric, are you able to say that answer? Maybe there's others who would like to know the information, or? Oh, I think he asked.
I just
Oh.
I just typed the response, but if
Great.
you need to submit that request in writing to Maria Fryer, who is the policy advisor for this program. She's not on the webinar today, but you send her an email with your request with the details of your application, and she'll follow up on that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Eric. We do have Maria's contact information at the end of this deck too, so you'll be able to see how to email her there. Okay, next question. Is there a way for a person to be the grant award administrator on more than one award for more than one recipient? For example, I work for VOA, which I think could be Volunteers of America, maybe, but VOA, and we have a BJA award I am the admin on. VOA is also the mental health partner to Knox County Sheriff's Office. Can I be an award administrator in there as well and submit performance measure reports in both awards? So I think I'll direct that probably for the grant administrator, whether they can be the grant administrator, the POC on both. I'll ask Tammy and Nikisha that first, and then we'll ask separately about the performance measures, I guess.
Okay, this is Nikisha. It is up to the organization who they assign those roles to. We can't say who can and who cannot. You just have to make sure if you are being billed or if you are charging the grant, that you have to make sure that the time is sufficient, because you can't be an award admin on one award at 100% and then on another one on another award at 100%, because that wouldn't make sense, because you can't perform a full-time job for both of them. So you just have to be very cautious about your time and, time that you will spend on each award. But again, that is up to the agency.
Great. Thank you, Nikisha. Yeah, that's so great to have you all answering these questions when you know all the nuances around the issues. So I guess I'll ask, I don't know, Nikisha, if I should ask you to continue about, can you do the performance measure reports in both? Or if I should ask that to Sam, maybe you both have things to.
Well, if their role is to be the grant award admin for both awards, then yes, they will be the person assigned to submit those performance measures.
Okay, so as long as they're not doing 100% for both,
right,
which is not feasible, that it would be acceptable to enter multiple PMTs. Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have a question that I think probably would be for Sam. Again, just clarifying about the PMT and whether that's submitted through Just Grants.
So unless you have an award that was awarded before the year 2021, you do not need to worry about the PMT. That's only if you're a recipient of multiple awards. But for the sake of this orientation and based on what the polling showed, it looks like most of the people on the line are new recipients. So you will actually report directly into Just Grants and will not have to work with the PMT at all.
Okay. And so when is the first follow-up question is when is the first reporting due? You know, if people are asking if they haven't served anyone, how do they report? Or how does that change how they report?
If you haven't had any activity, there's actually the very first question in the questionnaire will simply ask if you have any grant activity to report on for the reporting period. You can just say no, and it will prompt you to indicate why. And there's a couple different options, one of which would just be, we're not ready, we don't have our funding secured. So you wouldn't be expected to report data unless you've actually had activity during the reporting period.
Okay. And is there a distinction between any activity and working with participants in some way, whether that's, you know, responding to, you know, so for example, in the planning phase, many grantees might not be working directly with participants yet. Does that impact, you know, when they start reporting, or do they start reporting at the beginning of their grant cycle?
Okay, can I chime in real quick?
Sure, go for it.
And before you say anything, well, no one should be doing any activities or reporting until you have an approved budget, and not just an approved budget, but that you don't have any other active programmatic withholdings, because withholdings does prevent you from also being able to move forward with implementing and doing any type of projects, even in the planning period. So it's very important that you all look over your award documents, especially the special conditions, because you do have to read those and you have to initial each one just to make sure that you are aware of any of the withholdings that needs to, you know, that needs to be taken care of. And if there's any programmatic right now, it's best that you reach out to myself and to Tammy so that we can start getting those programmatic withholdings removed while we're still waiting for OCFO to complete the budget review. Okay, Sam, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just going to follow up and say that, again, the very first question in the questionnaire will ask you if you have grant activity, and then the list for reasons why you would not have grant activity is basically that you're still in procurement, your budget hasn't been approved, you're seeking subcontractors, you're waiting to hire a program manager, staff, coordinating staff, all things that would be like you really haven't done anything. Once you review the questionnaire, you'll be able to see that even in the planning phase, like there might be questions that you can answer, but if you haven't done anything, that's where you would say no, and then you would select the reason for no activity.
Okay, let me chime in one more time. This is Nikisha. Also, please note that even though you don't have any activity during the reporting period, it still is imperative that you do submit your programmatic reports. You still have to submit on those, because if we're in the process of getting any withholdings removed, if you do not submit your reports in that time, then you will be considered delinquent and your funds will remain on hold for delinquency of submitting reports. I'm not sure how the schedule is, but this one, I know it usually is typical from October to the end of December is when you would do the first reporting. So I'm not sure if this one is moving from October up into January, but once you go in, whoever the award admin is, they should be able to see when they go into Just Grants when those programmatic reports are due. That's all I have.
Great. Thank you so much to all of you. I have a question that I think was asked, just a follow-up question about the administrator. Can a subawardee be an administrator?
Is that the general purpose of them hiring the subawardee to be the admin to do the oversight for the award? Because even though you all may go outside of the agency to hire someone, you as the actual grantee will still have to make sure that the person who you're hiring is still doing the day-to-day what they need to do. So that's the question. So is that the sole purpose of them hiring the person? So whoever who asked that question.
I'm not sure specifically, but could you answer for each option? Yes, that's their main purpose, or no, it's not the subawardee's main purpose. Could you provide an answer for each? Because people may come up with either of those situations, I think.
Well, I mean, if that is the sole purpose, because they can have the award and have it, someone else actually doing the service. So, I mean, yeah, that's fine. Just as long as they have that agreement in that they still would have to, because the person who's doing the work is a sub-recipient and not the actual grantee. So the grantee will still have to make sure everything is being done. And the grantee should also still be listed on the award. Someone in the agency should still be listed on the award, because things do come up and we need to make sure that the grantee is also getting that information.
Great, thank you very much.
Mhm.
And I think perhaps Eric answered this, or someone answered this in the chat, but there's a question about, are there specific people needed in the advisory group? So, so I would just say, that once you start working with your TA coach, they will, you'll be really discussing in depth the advisory group as part of the planning process, through working on the planning and implementation guide and in your monthly TA calls. And so you will definitely be able to talk through those details with your TA coach to make sure you have everyone included that you need to on the advisory group. I don't know if others have anything else they want to add, but that's how I would respond to that. Okay. I think there's another question, but I think Eric is quick on the draw here and is typing them. But I think it might be a good question for all to hear too. So the question was, see if I can find it. Are the programmatic reports unique to the particular program, Connect and Protect or JMHCP, or is it a standard form for all BJA awards? And so Eric's response was, they're unique to Connect and Protect, although there are similarities with JMHCP. So just, that's a good thing to note. And we'll give it a minute more for any other questions. We're getting a question, do we have access to the programmatic reports now? Or do they need to wait?
They should be able to, like when they go into just grants, the award admin should be able to see the performance questions.
Yes, if the award has been accepted. If it's not been
Yes.
accepted,
Mhm.
then the questions will not populate. The report will not populate, I should
Right.
say.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Great, thank you. Okay, one other question. I think this would go to probably Sam. Any tips about things that typically could go wrong when we're filling out the performance measurement report? So any tips or strategies that would be helpful there?
I don't really have any great advice on this, other than to say that if anything at all goes wrong, reach out immediately to the help desk. They're better suited to help with any kind of technical difficulties that you might find. If you have questions about what a particular question is getting after, like what kind of data we're actually looking for, then you can reach out to me or to any of the other PPI team contacts that were provided on the slides. But yeah, any kind of technical difficulties, that is a help desk question for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I think I've reached all of the questions. But if anyone has any other questions, please either chat or chat them in now or put them in the Q&A box. I guess while we're just waiting a second for that, I'll ask the panelists if you had any other information you'd like to provide that wasn't covered yet. I think we covered a lot of grounds today. Second or two more for questions. Okay. All right. So I think we've it's great we had enough time to answer all of the questions today. And, you know, as we wrap up, I'll just, if we can, the next 2 slides have all of our contact and here's, you know, I'll just say on this slide, here's Eric Dietrich's contact information. He was answering questions today. Thank you, Eric. Maria Fryer she's traveling, so was unable to be on this webinar today, but she is the person you would contact as far as asking about the peer review information and other, you know, policy office questions. And we have, of course, Nikisha and Tammy's contacts on this slide and the next slide. Also Sam and myself. So please, you know, this is all of our contact information. Please feel free to reach out to us. Oh, I think we might have one more question. I'll get to it. So we're being asked, when will we know our assigned, you know, main point of contact for TA, or your TA coach or TA provider? So this is a great question. You will be getting that information. You'll find out who your TA coach is going to be in the next couple of weeks. If for some reason you don't hear, please feel free to reach out to me. My contact information is here, Allison Upton at the Council of State Governments Justice Center. We will make sure you get connected to that person, to the TA provider, TA coach. But you know, should be hearing within the next couple of weeks. There might be one other. No, that's everyone. Okay, so I think that's all the questions. And I just want to say thank you, you know, so much to all of our panelists, and congratulations again to all of you on your new JMHCP and Connect and Protect awards. We really look forward to collaborating with you in the work going forward. And we thank everyone for joining into this webinar today. So that'll conclude our time today. And we hope that you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.